Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to the Porsche Cup Challenge multi-class sports car racing, or at least it was in the past, but more on that later. Today, we're in Germany, the Nordschleife, and it is going to be a good one. As always, I'm your host, James East, with Team Goon Squad Broadcasting, Breathe the Action 1080p, 60 frames a second, and tonight, joined by a special guest, Dad Time Racing. You can find him on Twitch with his own iRacing shenanigans. Welcome to the booth, and what are you expecting today out of these drivers?
What am I you know what? This is just one crazy wild track, honestly. And it's a track of survival. It's not always the fastest guy that wins here. It's the guy who can just stay out of the wall more than the other drivers. I've seen the fastest guys just lose it, and it's wild experience. So in that way, I don't even know what to expect.
Looking forward to another great one. These guys always put on a good show in the Porsche Cup Challenge. Now let me run through the grid. Starting on pole, Dan McFarland, the number 23 machine. Jeff Seville starting second. Adam Schmidt starts third. Julian Swanson starting fourth. Michael Carrillo starts fifth. Lima starting sixth in the number 47 machine. Choi starting seventh in the number 8. Dan Morera starts eighth. Gary Watson starting ninth. Vlad Sanchez starts 10th. Michael McLeod starting 11th. Shannon Mothral will round out the 12-car grid, and it looks like drivers getting ready to go here. Now, as we are green flag racing, it looks like it's going to be a 50-minute race here today at the Nordschleife. McFarland with a early gap, but look at that. We've already got Jeff Seville, Adam Schmidt side by side here at the ring, putting on a show for the fans out here today.
Yeah, the Nordschleife it's definitely it's gonna be quite a show, is my prediction. As you see, everyone's starting nice and close, and looking at the standings, Jeff Seville currently leading the league. With the 3 drop weeks that are applied, he's currently undefeated.
Yeah, Seville's been tough to match here in that number 3 machine. Now, it's going to be interesting to me. We have 12 drivers starting this feature event. And as you touched on earlier in the broadcast, this is definitely one of those races where it is an attrition-based event. So I'm not necessarily expecting the fastest guy to win. And as I say that, Jeff Seville had a very brief off-track in the number 3 machine. So we're only a minute into this feature event, and he's dipping some tires in places where he does not want to be. If we go a little bit further back, there's Mothral Morera having a battle.
And that may actually be just trying to use every possible inch on this track. It's definitely one of the strong suits of the faster drivers, is using every possible inch and not letting any of that go to waste. So
Yeah.
it could be a factor.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Drivers can do whatever they can to extend the limits. And even though I personally think this is going to be an attrition-based race, these guys are racers. They come out and they want to put down the fastest lap time possible. And it looked like Adam Schmidt was catching up to McFarland there, had him within about a half a second. So it's going to be interesting to see if those two continue to duke it out. Right behind them, that's Seville and Swanson, separated by about 0.6 of a second. But if we go further back, there's Lima and McLeod having their own battle for 7th. McLeod up 3 spots, Lima down 1, but going to be interesting to see if that number 15 machine can grab another spot here.
Now, I noticed Michael McLeod actually qualified at the very back. It looks like he didn't even set a qualifying time. He's currently 2nd overall in the entire standings throughout the season. So I'm really curious to see how this one turns out for number 15.
Yeah, and the number 15 machine trying to close that gap, wants to track down Seville in those point standings, as you said earlier on. And now, talk me through the strategy here at the ring tonight. What are you expecting for these drivers? I mean, are they going to hammer down immediately, or are they going to try and keep somebody just kind of in tow? What's the plan? What's the move here?
I think that in my experiences and with the experiences I have here at the Nurburgring, you're basically trying to figure out if the car in front of you is a bottleneck, or is he going to be the one that brings you through and brings you forward to the next car ahead of you? So you're always trying to pace that off of the driver in front of you. Do I need to make that pass? Do I need to apply pressure and make him crack? Or do I just hang out in draft, in tow, and trust in the driving ability of the car in front of me?
Yeah, very well said. It's definitely a bit of a game of cat and mouse here. And for me as a broadcaster, it's tough to kind of predict where the passing opportunities are going to be. Swanson and Carrillo about to show us as they are side by side. Carrillo with that number 29 machine, always easy to spot with the fluorescent green wheels, but looks like he's going to grab that spot from Swanson's 51, and now it's going to be Swanson's turn to follow as he drops back to 5th. But what do you think? Is there a particularly great place on track we're going to maybe expect to see some passes, or is it going to be moments of opportunity that the drivers just take as they're presented?
You know what? I really think that it's a lot of both. Just like that moment you saw right in front of us, Young Choi's made a mistake, and that's allowed Zhao Lima to make his way through. If I'm not mistaken, that is Zhao Lima to make his way through. So just staying close and in contact with that car ahead of you will actually allow for you to take that opportunity that presents itself. So that is one key way to do it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this one kind of develops over the run, because for the most part, still a couple of good battles out on track. Carrillo and Swanson battling for 3rd, and you've got that big battle, Lima, Choi, McLeod, Motheral, all in tow, running about 6th place back. We're watching to see if Swanson is going to fire back against Carrillo here. Doing a great job keeping that number 29 machine right in the firing line there. So let's get a different camera angle. The trees here at the ring kind of blocking the camera, but yeah, this is probably the most scenic track you can go to in the world, especially, I mean, even on iRacing, this is as good as it gets.
I'm looking here now at Carrillo is having Julian Swanson really catch up to him. So this is, I'm sure, getting into Swanson's head, thinking to himself, maybe Carrillo right in front of me is a little bit of a bottleneck. But the tricky part about this track is you can really be amazing at one sector and terrible at another. So you can never truly tell if you really need to pass the driver or not.
Yeah, as good as all these guys are, at the end of the day, we are all amateurs on iRacing, so it's extremely tough to turn a perfect lap anywhere, much less here at Nordschleife. But Swanson has to be feeling good, keeping Carrillo right there in the hunt within a quarter of a second. But if we go a little bit further back, looks like things are still really dicey here in a 4-car battle for 6th. Lima, Choi, McLeod, Motheral, all separated by about a second everywhere you look, and looks like McLeod's going to have pressure from Motherall's number 19 machine.
Yeah, you know, Shannon's looking very, very quick. I know he put in some good laps of practice this week for this race. So I really do expect Shannon to have a very strong showing in this race.
Yeah, I'm going to be... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I think that he's currently 3rd in the amateur division with this season with 328 points, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm really curious to see how Shannon shows up in this race.
Yeah, I mean, every point is going to come down to it. Let's see, Motheral right in the draft of McLeod, less than a 10th between the two. This is the battle for 8th out on circuit right now. Both McLeod and Motheral up 3 positions as our hard chargers, but looks like Motheral is going to follow along here for a little while longer. But right ahead of these guys, looks like the field's catching up to Lima. Choi had that gap within about 0.2 of a second as well, and we're going to finally start our 2nd lap here at the ring.
7 minutes in, starting the 2nd lap, imagine that. So it looks like Jeff Seville and Zhao Lima looks like he's got that slight draft. You do have a little bit of a draft effect at 1.6, 1.5, but as they start this first sector, it looks to be getting a little bit lost. But behind Zhao, he's got a train of cars.
Yeah, I mean, Chow, McLeod, Motheral right in tow up front. Looks like Swanson maintaining the same distance behind Carrillo here. Oh, but I see an off-track report. I think that was Dan Morera in the 404. A bit of an off-track excursion. He's going to fall 15 seconds back from Motheral, holding on to 10th place, but Morera's having a rough go here. He's down 2 spots early on. Everybody else is almost literally a mile ahead at this point, so he's got to try and get the red mist out of his eyes and focus on putting on some clean sections here if he wants a chance at salvaging some points.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, didn't mean to interrupt you there, but Swanson and Carrillo have contact. Carrillo gets the worst end of it. Jeff Seville moves back up to 4th. Carrillo's going to drop down the standings. He's back to 6th now.
Oh, and that is intense. It's one of the trickiest braking zones on this track. It's like it's a downhill, and you really don't have a lot of traction under braking. And I think that both drivers were trying to outbrake each other, and it just ended poorly, more for Carrillo, unfortunately.
Yeah, two drivers just trying to occupy the same position. I mean, even on a regular circuit, normally doesn't work extremely well, but today at the ring, just not enough room to have those mistakes. It's very easy to find yourself on the outside looking in with just one little bobble here on the ring, and thankfully that didn't go worse for these drivers. And I'm surprised continuously that this group of about 5 drivers squarely in the vortex of danger 9 minutes in. We haven't seen any big incidents so far, and Motheral continues the forward pressure. He's up 4 spots after getting around McLeod. Looks like Choi is going to be the next target of the 19 machine.
Yeah, and this is just showing that how these guys are operating around each other, that high level of trust, and just sort of when someone does attempt a pass, you almost let them go and sort of say, here, you have at it. See if you can take on this guy ahead of me, and see if you can open that door for me, and maybe you can get me an extra position. A little bit of a shuffle that's always happening.
Yeah, a lot of fun to watch the racecraft out of these drivers. We check back in Dan McFarland. He's feeling very comfortable, very smooth here today. Almost 5 seconds up over Adam Schmidt as Julian Swanson holds on to that 3rd place spot, the final podium position. He's about 11.8 seconds. Swanson finds himself back from McFarland. But again, this is going to be an attrition-based race, I think. And now, what do you think as far as pit strategy here tonight? When are we going to see drivers maybe come down pit road and look for some clean air during the race?
Well, if I calculated this correctly, if you're lucky and unfortunately slow for the drivers who are slower, you're going to be able to do 5 laps. Now, I say that because for the drivers who are faster, it's because they're on the throttle for longer throughout the lap. They have the cojones to keep on it. And that's actually where the pace is found. And so the drivers who are a little bit slower can actually... Oh!
That was Mothral and Choi. A little bit of bumper-to-bumper contact. McLeod's going to slide right on through. That's going to be his 3rd spot gained once more. But, man, these guys are bumping and grinding here at the ring. And, I mean, we touched on it earlier in the broadcast. Normally that does not bode well for being able to make it here till the end of this thing.
And so, as I was saying about the pit stop, is 5 laps. So anywhere from lap 3 to lap 5, these guys will be pitting. But if you're at the very front of the field, you must pit on lap 4 at the very latest.
So we feel confident that McFarland, Schmidt, Swanson probably going to come down pit road around lap 4. Is that what we're saying?
That's my estimation and my calculations is saying right around there. Absolutely. Jeff Seville may also be in that boat, but he has the very good fortune to have Julian Swanson within a second of him. So he's going to be able to have a little bit more fuel savings.
Yeah, Seville's closing that gap rather quickly. Almost has it within a half second behind that number 51 machine. Seville still down 2 spots from where he originally started. Not the whole shot he was looking for, but this, as you said, that could bode very, very well if he can maybe get tucked in a little bit closer by Swanson and maybe let Swanson push the air off the front of him. That could really play into fuel strategy by the time this thing is nearing closer to the checkered flag.
Absolutely. I'm not sure the exact benefit of going that extra lap. I didn't calculate that out. I just calculate how far can you go on one single tank fuel. So yeah, I'm sure Dan McFarlane and Adam Schmidt are going to be pitting on that 4th lap.
Now, with that being said, normally in the past, and we touched on this at the very beginning of the broadcast, historically the P-Cup has been multi-class. This week we have brought it back to its roots, just the P-Cup Challenge, no more GTPs. So with your experience being able to hang out with these drivers, are we seeing maybe more GTP guys show up racing the P-Cup, or are they kind of taking a break and seeing what becomes of it?
I'm gonna put my money on they're taking a break and seeing what comes of it, and they're gonna most likely take that avenue. That's my guess. The Porsche Cup drivers, I know that their nerves, their nerves are shot after having the Porsche Cup, the GTP, hanging around for much of the season. So I think that's most of them feel a lot more at ease racing each other.
Yeah, and this is definitely a track. I think the drivers are happy that it's not multi-class. Oh, look at that move by Choi. Choi and McLeod were side by side, and oh no, Choi's got big problems. The number 8 machine off by himself. There goes McLeod, and I think Choi's going to have heavy suspension damage. And yeah, unfortunately, Choi is going to take a tow back to pit road, so that is the first one the green lap mile has kind of claimed here as we see Choi take that tow back to pit road.
And funny enough, of where that happened, he was just about 50 feet past the pit entry. So we have a faster pair, and he was just 50 feet too far to make use of it. That is just really unfortunate location.
Yeah, that's going to be an extremely long tow time as well. Dan McFarland, last time by, clicked off a 6:37, 6-minute 37 lap time. Normally, the fans at home don't get to hear that length of broadcast lap time during one of our shows, but that gives you an idea of just how insanely long a lap here is. I mean, any other circuit in the world, that's enough to click off at least 3 laps.
Yeah, exactly. I think the only other track that's quite long in a similar way would be Le Mans.
Yeah, and even then, I don't know off the cuff what a Le Mans lap time would be, but my goodness, that's a long time. But looks like Choi, not as long as a tow as I was expecting, able to get back out on track after 1 minute and 10 seconds, so he back out in the fight. And that's one of the great things about here racing the Porsche Cup Challenge. It's never over until it's over. So even though Choi is down 5 spots and it's going to be almost a half lap down from the rest of the drivers, I mean, points are still at stake here. He's got a chance to get back in the mix, and there's a very good chance somebody else has some problems by the time it's all said and done.
Absolutely. And here, it looks like with Zhao Lima, Michael Krill, and Shannon Mothral, so these guys right now, they're trying to figure out within their own racecraft of their races, who is the bottleneck? Who am I going to apply pressure to? Am I going to just chill and relax? That cat and mouse is happening right in front of our very eyes.
And we've got problems. This time it's for Jeff Seville, and he has got a freight train of drivers behind him. Here comes Lima, Carrillo, Mothral, all tucked in right behind Jeff Seville, as I would assume was kind of the odds-on favorite here tonight. He's the points leader. But, man, if you take any damage, and we saw that with Choi, if you take any damage at the beginning of a lap, that is an excruciatingly long time to try and lift this thing around before you get that fast repair available to you. And for the fans at home, as a reminder, that fast repair, kind of a get-out-of-jail-free card, allows you to come down pit road, hit the magic button, and get back on the circuit and basically a brand-new race car. Am I correct?
Absolutely. And we do that because at the end of the day, we are a fun league. We want everyone to still have fun. And, you know, we make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. These drivers all make mistakes. And to not just be absolutely like excruciating, whatever, I can't say the word for some reason, punished.
Yeah, it's all about making friends and developing racecraft here at the Porsche Cup Challenge. Now, it looks like Lima had a bit of an off track. I think he got a slowdown there, and that allows Carrillo and Mothral to grab the 5th and 6th place spot. So these are definitely the 3 closest drivers out on track. You can see Jeff Seville getting his legs back underneath him, has pulled about a 1.4 second advantage, and we've got huge problems. Carrillo hard into the wall after rubbing and grinding with, I believe that was Lima. No, that was Mothral. And oh man, Carrillo is in a bad spot here.
Oh, and Michael McLeod almost clipped him as he comes on by. That was close. Very lucky that Michael Carrillo stayed still for that moment, or that could have been huge chaos.
Yeah, not a lot of runoff here, and guardrails absolutely everywhere, left, right, and in some cases front and behind you too, depending on what part of the circuit you are. It gets very, very tight here at the Nordschleife, and man, I mean, that's what we say about just one little mistake in a 50-minute, I guess it's considered a sprint, not a mini endurance, but that's all it takes, and you find yourself really, really facing an uphill battle.
So now I'm super, super curious. Shannon Mothral is ahead of Zhao Lima. I'm going to be watching these intervals to see who was the bottleneck in that massive 3, 4, 5 car train. Is Shannon going to be able to close that gap up to Jeff Seville, or is he going to have Zhao come right up his tail and show that Shannon might not deserve that position?
Yeah, already Mothral gaining about a 1.1 second over Zhao Lima, that 47. Last time by, they were almost identical on lap times, but that almost makes me wonder, maybe it was Carrillo kind of slowing these guys up slightly. Gonna be interesting, but Mothral seems to have legs in that number 19 machine. He's our hard charger so far of the evening. Up 19, excuse me, the 19 is up 7 positions up into 5th, and he is very quickly put on about a quarter of a second and a quarter on Lima here.
And it looks like he has front end damage, so a little bit of a slower straight line speed. That is impressive.
Unfortunately, we got the report. Choi takes another tow back to pit road after an incident, so already used the fast repair of the number 8 machine. Only one available, and that's the really bad part about using that early on in an event. If you use that fast repair and then find yourself with a wadded up race car, you are effectively done and out depending on how long that damage is. But hopefully we see Choi return back on circuit, the number 8 machine, because we've only got 11 of the 12 drivers that started this thing still out on the track.
Yeah, and I see on my little timing tower chart that you've sent me for this race, Jeff Seville's already got 8 off tracks in 3 laps. So I'm really curious to see if he'll be able to keep it clean enough by the end of the race.
Yeah, and to Jeff's credit, and for the fans at home, sometimes the broadcast software doesn't get that just quite right. Spa's a great example, where it'll show all sorts of off tracks every corner, but sometimes the software doesn't quite match up with what iRacing's reporting, but it gives us kind of an idea. Seville has been a little bit more lenient dipping the tires off. That's what's triggering the broadcast software. I don't have a way off the cuff to kind of see how accurate that is against iRacing, but and remind the fans as well at home, how many off tracks or how many incident points can these drivers have before the automatic steward system starts to involve itself?
So in these races, we're going to have 17x before they have to serve a drive-through penalty. The drive-through penalty, it's just as simple as drive through the pits. Once you have 17x, that can come from 4x contact, 2x lose control, 1x off track, the whole range of it. And so once you hit 17 total, you'll have to serve that penalty driving through the pits.
Well, hopefully that does not become a factor for these drivers. The field fairly spread out here at this moment. McFarland still up front with about 11-second gap over Schmidt. Schmidt running about 8.5 seconds ahead of Swanson, who's holding on to third. 2 closest drivers we have out on track, Mothral and Lima, separated by about a second here. We've seen it go back and forth a little bit. It'll gain a couple of tenths in Lima's favor. It goes back to Mothral for a couple tenths, and they keep going back and forth. Now, we asked about it. Maybe Mothral would be able to reel in Jeff Seville. Right now, it doesn't look like it, as there we go, the camera error. He's still lagging about 2 seconds back from Seville, so not losing much time, but really not gaining any either here.
And that, I would actually say it's a little bit of a sweet spot to be in, where you know you're not losing a lot, but not gaining a lot. It's a happy place to be, because it means to me, if I'm in that position in that race car, that I'm doing something right. If I'm gaining, it gets me, sometimes it can get you a little bit too excited. It makes you start thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do when I get to them? And sometimes you do enjoy that happy spot of just being 2 seconds away, no faster, no slower.
Yeah, that's a good point. Sometimes the red mist takes over, but as we were talking, I mean, Seville just pulled 6 more tenths of a second on Mothral. So I guess Lima's kind of in that prime spot right now, kind of hanging around that 9/10 to a second gap and not really losing any time here. And we've already seen Mothral involved with a couple of exciting moments here at the ring. And we've only got about 2 minutes left before drivers will be shown the crossed green and white flags, signaling the halfway mark of today's main event. And Dan McFarland, he is checking out. Almost 12 seconds up over the rest of the field. The only driver to get down to a 6-minute 37 lap time his last time by. That was 4 seconds faster than Adam Schmidt was able to pull the last lap.
Now, with the Nurburgring, I've always said that there's two types of drivers. The one that drive the car normally and just end up being like, okay, well, it's Nurburgring week. And then the other type of Nurburgring drivers are the ones who, doesn't matter what car it is, they'll be bloody quick out on this track every single time. And I think Dan falls under like the Nurburgring specialist. Every little bump, every little corner, it's looking like he knows it. He's currently third overall in our season standings with was it 394 points. So
oh, there's Motheral. We talked about the exciting moments he had, and looks like he just lost a right mirror off the circuit.
Where does mirror go? Oh,
I don't think I've seen that in iRacing. Yeah, I don't think I've seen that in iRacing before, with the mirrors gone and doesn't show back up.
His car's not driving straight either. It's doggy tailing it, or what? Dog tailing.
Yeah, crabbing a little bit. And look, Motheral pulls over. He's going to take a tow back to pit road. McLeod's going to get a gimme there. And the number 15 machine moving up into 6th. So the Nürburgring has claimed its second victim. Choi was the first driver involved. And Motheral, I don't think he's going back to pit road. I think he's just done.
It maybe it appears like it. It's yeah. I guess that's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, this is not good. We've whittled it down to 10 drivers out on track. The field very spread out at this point. The two closest drivers we have out on track, and we haven't talked about it in quite a minute, but Jeff Seville keeping his head down, charging forward. Now all of a sudden he's got a podium within striking distance. Julian Swanson, number 51 machine, within a second of Seville. And looks like last time by, Seville was let's call it about 3 seconds slower than Swanson, but starting to get his groove back here, the number 3 machine.
Yeah, I see last lap, Jeff Seville had a lap of 6 minutes 45, whereas Julian Swanson has 6 minutes 42. So that's you know what? Even though it's a 6 and something minute lap, that's quite a difference of pace. It looks like this lap though, Jeff has really put his head down, as you're saying. He's got that target to get Julian's position.
Now you made a good point of it. Sometimes it gets a little bit. You get a little bit flustered with a driver right ahead of you and you start overdriving the car. On the other hand as well, sometimes as a racer, it's great to have that rabbit to chase, seeing the guy in front of you and knowing, oh, I'm so close, I can make this happen. So I'm wondering if that's what's happening to Seville here, starting to see the taillights off of Swanson's number 51 machine and maybe getting a little bit extra momentum here as he's still about a second and a half back. And I'm curious to see here what the lap times will update to, as it looks like Dan McFarland, yes, he is going to cross the line and come down pit road.
Yeah, so Dan taking that lap 4 pit stop. Let's see how that goes.
Going to be interesting to see if Schmidt and Swanson follow suit here. Schmidt is down pit road. We keep the camera focused on Swanson to see if that 51 opts the box. No, he's going to stay out here. Feeling good to extend that run. And so there Jeff we go. Yes, Seville also going to stay out. So Swanson will take over the race lead on pit strategy, but with your thoughts early on, we're fairly certain that Swanson and Seville will come down next time by. Lima opts to stay out as well in the 47, and that was Swanson's fastest lap of the race at 6:42 flat. So getting more comfortable as the run progresses, and that gas tank gets a little bit more empty and a little bit lighter car.
Now, last lap, Jeff Seville had a 6 minute 40 seconds. And Julian Swanson has 6 minute 42. So 2 seconds. So the lap time, the overall pace has now swayed back to in favor of Jeff Seville, if he can keep it on track. Now, Swanson is not ahead by any means by pit strategy. It's because he has not pit. So if you add 15, 20 seconds to his overall time on the race, he'll be quite a bit few spots back. So Dan is still I would still say the race leader, but not yet.
Yeah, it's really going to come down to strategy, and we've both seen in the past any little mistake on pit road. Oh, and as I say that, Swanson, a bit of a bobble, falls back to third, losing a spot to McFarland as well as Seville. So Swanson now officially on the back foot. We thought Swanson would be in a good podium spot if his pit cycle went well, but now has fallen back to third. And we were talking about as well, I mean, we've seen drivers really stay consistent out on track, but then suddenly have issues on pit road, which can cost you a whole lot of time. And that wasn't even the case there for Swanson. Just a single mistake and easily drops 2 positions.
Yeah, and this is quite impressive, honestly. Dan has a pit stop where he sat in the pits, taking fuel and all of that for about 20 seconds of time, and he's still in front of Jeff Seville, who has not gone into the pits and taken that 20-second time penalty from basically taking that time in the pits. That is impressive. Oh!
Who was that?
I think that was Swanson.
Yeah, I think so. Man, things are getting exponentially worse for that number 51 machine. Doesn't look like the left side of the car is too damaged. Still running straight and true, but I mean, complicating issues, exponential problems, and that can really throw off your focus as well as your reference marks for the rest of the lap. It can take you quite a while to get back up to pace if you blow one corner, and I mean, that might be what we're seeing for Swanson as well. Then after that, all your reference marks, your braking points kind of thrown upside down as you're suddenly hitting corners with different speeds than you were expecting.
Yeah, and absolutely blows your mindset apart when you make a mistake, and you can get so angry at yourself, and all of a sudden you just keep making more.
Yeah, the exponential issues, and I like to call it the red mist, always make things a little bit tougher.
How would you describe the red mist? I'm actually curious.
So the red mist is when everything else takes over except what you're actually supposed to be thinking of. So a driver passes you, you make a mistake, and then your brain goes into attack mode. And then you're kind of, the rule with racing is you never want to be giving 100% effort, because then you don't have anything left over if you make a mistake. So if you're pushing at 100%, you have a little bobble, it can very often lead to a crash. If you're racing at 85-90% of your ability, you've got a little bit left in the tank, but sometimes that red mist will override that racecraft, and you can do some exciting things by accident.
I like that. That's a perfect description. I'm gonna steal that one with pride.
Yeah, I'm here for you guys, so always good to see. And Adam Schmidt's doing a good job keeping McLeod in tow. The Canadian number 15 machine, our hard charger, out on track. As a little bit of a lockup there, it looks like, but not really losing too much time to Schmidt as they make their way around the back half of the circuit. And man, I don't know what's going to happen here. Schmidt seems to be content following McLeod, but I've also seen drivers making moves when I didn't expect it so far in this race.
So this is absolutely one of those moments where pit strategy plays a huge role. Adam Schmidt was well ahead of Michael McLeod before that pit stop that Adam took. Adam took that pit stop, ended up behind Michael McLeod. Now, it's Adam's risk to stay behind, because if the before the pit stops took place, third position car, if he is able to put down killer laps and Adam loses time behind Michael McLeod here, it can actually have Adam lose that second position overall at the end of the race. So it's really interesting to see how this is going to take place.
Yeah, it's going to be a long race here. We got about 18 minutes left to go in this feature event. So I think you're right. I think Schmidt, unless McLeod starts to really hold up the number 12 machine, I think he's going to bide his time, knowing McLeod needs to come down pit road this time by or risk running out of fuel. And McLeod doing a good job. I mean, I'm looking at it. I believe only going to lose one spot if everything goes smoothly on pit road. We have another crash report. This time it's Vlad Sanchez, that number 2 machine. Looks like it's going to be a solo incident. Not too much damage on that number 2, and Vlad will keep charging on in that 10th place position.
Yeah, it's not an easy track at all. What experience have you got on this track? Out of curiosity.
Absolutely none. I've never turned a lap. I've never watched a lap on this circuit before tonight.
If you can imagine, it's basically like you're driving a backcountry road at full speed with zero forgiveness.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty spot on from what I'm seeing up here. McLeod and Schmidt side by side in fifth. No, I will say as well, this being my first race I've ever called here at the ring, I do want to hop in the sim and just kind of treat it like that country road and just turn a couple of really slow laps and basically sightsee here. I've watched, plenty of the YouTube videos we all have seen of weekend warriors running out of talent hot lapping or attempting to. Because as you know, let me interrupt myself. Seville and Swanson down pit road for their stops. Lima also coming down pit road. Adam Schmidt will stay out after his lap 4 pit stop. There goes Michael McLeod.
And there goes that lap 5 required stop. You can't go any longer.
Yep, that's it. So that's going to complete our pit cycles for today. But
here's Seville coming out.
Okay, yep. Seville, 16.1 seconds in his pit stall. A very quick pit time there. Almost, a full second, over a full second faster than McFarlane or Schmidt on pit road. But looks like Seville's going to be about 11.3 seconds back. So, and a little bit of a bodywork drag there.
So it looks like Adam Schmidt being behind Michael McLeod for that lap, it did not harm his position too much, but he's absolutely nowhere close enough to challenge for the lead of the race. He's basically in the hopes and prayers of Dan wrecking out to try and snag the victory, but seeing Dan's consistency, it's just not likely.
Yeah, and before we had this pit cycle completed, Dan Morera is going to be our final driver on pit road in the 404. For the fans at home, Schmidt!
Oh, Schmitty!
So Schmidt, who was about 16, 17 seconds back from McFarlane, is going to lose a fistful of time there. Now 21.4 seconds back from the race leader. I think with about 15 minutes left to go here, Schmidt's going to kind of put it in the proverbial cruise control, focus on just staying clean, has a very comfortable 8-second margin over Seville, who's one of the fastest drivers out on track. But I think after a big moment like that, I think we're going to see Schmidt back it off a little bit.
Yeah, you know what? After going into the K layer like that, it's definitely a wake up call. And as a driver, most drivers they count their blessings in a moment like that, where their car is still survived in every possible way, no damage. You still have to check yourself to not slow up to the point that you're actually going to get caught up by the driver behind you.
And before Schmidt's big moment was, want to let the fans know as well. Well, I gotta quit telling fans anything, because every time I do, we have huge incidents. Dan Morera gets the 404 whipped back around, still holding on to the 8th place spot. He's got a very comfortable 30-second margin up over Gary Watson, but this is that attrition we were talking about. Now I'm trying to squeeze this in before somebody else. Never mind, Julian Swanson with an off track. The commentator's curse is hitting hard tonight.
Yeah. So now he's got Zhao Lima directly on his tail. He's sucking all those exhaust fumes for a little extra horsepower.
Yeah, Lima's going to do his best, I think, just to hammer down. He sees that opportunity and wants to grab that top 4 spot here. And let me see what I can do here. There we go. Getting some notes pulled up. So yeah, Swanson within a half second now of Lima. Lima closing the gap. Jeff Seville 8.8 seconds ahead of this battle for 4th. So these are far and away the 2 closest drivers we have out on track. And I'm curious. Go ahead.
I was actually curious if we can track back to Dan Morera there, if he's got any damage on his car after that little bit of a oopsie. So let's just take a look. It looks like his car actually came out of that just fine.
Yeah, and it's the weird thing. Sometimes iRacing giveth, sometimes it taketh away. And especially, I mean, you've got more lap time, and these cars as Swanson almost bends it there. He was wide open, dragging the tail section of the car against the guardrails here, and I think Lima is going to back off slightly here. He almost saw his racing end from somebody else's mistakes.
If I'm Lima in this position, I would just be applying the pressure, but not making that pass. I can see right in front of my very eyes that the car in front of me, he is struggling with this car. He's struggling with these tires and not necessarily needing to make a pass because of that. Applying the pressure, I think, is going to create the opening all on its own.
Now, you mentioned tires. What are these drivers' experience as far as tire wear over the run? Because that was just, I believe, just a fuel stop on pit road. Historically, I don't think I've ever seen one of the P Cup drivers take tires unless they were involved in a fistful of incidents and a lot of slides.
So with tires, when it comes to tires, for the first few weeks, some of the drivers were thinking, I'll take rear tires or I'll take front tires. And I've been a huge proponent to say, do not take tires. Taking tires can add 10 seconds, something like that to your race. And you do not want it. You lose a lot of spots. Do not take tires. Tires in this car, because it's not a high downforce car, 500 horsepower. It's a lot of weight on that car. It's a lot of mechanical grip, not so much aerodynamic grip. It puts a lot more stress than a lot of the other cars here on iRacing. And with no ABS, no traction control, it totally changes the game. You can see a lot of these cars will be sliding as they exit the corners or go through the corners. And so, yeah, it's a huge challenge.
Yeah, I mean, that's where, again, we keep talking about the attrition. Drivers are fighting both the mental state of having to hold it wide for such a grueling race, but then the car tends to fight you as well, as that was Lima with a brief off track in the 47 machine, pushing a little bit wide. And you talked about no traction control. I mean, this is a racer's car by and by, but as the tires start to wear, what are these drivers' experience? Is it going to be like a loose out condition? Is it going to push into corners? How is the car reacting to that tire degradation?
Honestly, that is a very personal experience. So it all depends. And I think this is why this is one of the best learning cars for understanding tires, tire wear, all the things. Um, it's a very personal experience. For some drivers, based on how they drive, those front tires are going to give out first. Based on how they drive for other people, it's going to be the rear tires. And so it really gives you a huge insight onto how you drive. Are you a predominantly steer type of driver, or are you like throwing it around with the pedals more? It's really, really fascinating. Oh, look,
Oh,
Swanson going into the pits.
Swanson must have had some sort of damage to the number 51. I wonder if he got a meatball or something of the sorts, but that's going to put
Nope.
Michael McLeod back up into the top 5. Why
No,
was
that's
Swanson?
a drive-through.
Oh, you're right. Swanson hit the incident limit. We talked about it earlier on, and this is what's interesting. The broadcast software only shows him with 7 off tracks.
He must have had some. I know that the broadcast software doesn't necessarily take into account a 4x or a 2x when you hit the wall. It only counts the off track. So all the others, you're sort of like to lunch. You have no idea what's happening if it actually tallies up properly. So
Yeah, that's spot on what we're seeing. And Dan McFarland running uncontested here. I believe he'll be taking the white flag next time by, if I'm looking at the math correctly. So it looked like about a 9-lap race. Does that napkin broadcast math check out with you?
I'm thinking 8.
Okay.
So where's he? He's about halfway at 42 minutes. Yeah, it'll be an 8 lap race.
So I think Dan McFarland might be one of the drivers having the most amount of fun out on the circuit right now. A 23.4 second gap over Adam Schmidt. He's just been rocking and rolling here. The only driver to get into the 37s, and he did that last time by as well. His fastest lap, a 6:37.43. Last time by, a 6-minute 37-second 0.43. So not only is he incredibly fast here at the ring, he's also incredibly consistent.
Absolutely. He's one of those Nurburgring specialists. Being third in the championships down about 30 points from the next person up of Michael McLeod, and then also Jeff Seville, who's a little bit further ahead. I think that when I've talked to when I've talked to Dan, he said that he enjoys these tracks much more, and the Nurburgring just in general. And I know that Michael McLeod definitely prefers the FIA grade 1 type tracks. Jeff Seville, I'm not quite sure. I think Jeff Seville's just fast everywhere.
Yeah, I
But
was going to say, I don't think I've seen Seville have a slow night at any track. Very consistently up there in the mix. Now, obviously,
other than Coda and Jerez.
yeah, fair point. And speaking of Seville, last time by, 701.96, so he's backed off the plate. Or is that Seville's outlap, I wonder? It's got to be 20 seconds off his fastest lap of the race. I didn't see any incidents for him.
Yep, that was a pit stop lap.
Okay, so Seville, his fastest lap is 6 minute 40, about 2.5 seconds off McFarlane's fastest lap. Actually, a second, right at a second faster than Adam Schmidt's lap, but Schmidt's also being very consistent. Seville had an uphill battle from the very beginning here tonight, so for him to be in third place, I know he's looking for that big winning streak here at the Porsche Cup Challenge, but to be able to be sitting third at such a track where we've seen a couple drivers go home very early, he's got to be pleased with how things are going.
Absolutely. And the winner of the season at the end is not, I should say the winner at the end is the one who is the most consistently finishing highest. And at the moment, Jeff Seville, with as many wins as he's got, he doesn't even have to finish first or second, I think, if I'm looking at it correctly, to win the overall season. He just has to be in the podium or even the top 5 at this point.
Yeah, I agree spot on, and I know it sounds kind of redundant to the fans at home where we're saying, it's the most consistent driver that brings home a championship. And again, it's not always the fastest guy. You've got to be there at the end to score those points. So if you can come out, set the world on fire, and just leave everybody 30 seconds behind, that's great. But sometimes it's that dark horse running second and third each and every week that maybe doesn't get as much love on the broadcast, or sometimes even the guy in fourth and fifth who's just always consistently there. I've seen those guys bring home championships just out of consistency and big long championships.
Absolutely. I'm wondering if Michael McLeod is going to have that chance at making that type of dark horse run or not. It is pretty close. He's only 12 points total behind Jeff Seville, so it's not that far back.
Yeah, it's going to be close. Seville running third out on the circuit right now. McLeod running fifth, but McLeod also in striking distance with Joao Lima, and that's going to be for the fourth place spot. So that might be the goal for the number 15 machine. Grab one more spot. That would be the 7th position gain for him here tonight. And then he's only one spot behind Seville, and that is going to decrease the gains that Seville gets here tonight leaving the ring, and can kind of keep this championship pretty tight. And looks like McLeod getting a run, and he's getting ready to go for it.
Oh, that gap is closing ever so quickly. This is intense.
Yeah, Lima now finds company within about a quarter of a second from McLeod. McLeod doing a good job pacing, and it looks like Lima pushes a little bit wide here. Here comes McLeod, takes over the 4th place spot.
And this actually may be a tire management issue going on for Joao Lima is my guess. I'm not quite sure, but just it looks like Michael McLeod may have managed those tires just a little bit better as they exit onto that long back straight. Joao Lima, you can tell off the intervals, did not get the exit that he was looking for and just lost so much time. He is not going to gain that back in that draft.
Yeah, now he's got company from behind. Julian Swanson, number 51 machine. Again, another driver having an uphill battle is going to put the pressure on Lima. That could very much take the heat off of McLeod here. If Swanson and Lima start battling for 5th right behind that number 15 machine, McLeod could get a little bit of a breakaway, as it looks like Swanson trying to measure up Lima. Lima knows that he's got rearward pressure. He wants to try and fire back against McLeod here, but it's going to be tight as they cross the start-finish line. Now, last time by, McFarlane, a 6 minute, 35 second lap time. He is
Unreal.
absolutely screaming in that number 23.
Unreal. Unreal. Not even fair.
Yeah.
Throw throw him out the window.
Yeah, we got to add some weight to the car next time we're at a specialty track like this one. He is just rocking and rolling. Has extended that gap to about 27 seconds. Now Swanson really trying to force Lima into a mistake here. And as I predicted, that's given McLeod a little bit of a breakaway. Now has about 3/4 of a second over this battle for 5th. And Lima's going to try and take a defensive line, but Lima's going to pitch it away there in the 47. Able to keep it off the wall, but my goodness, what a save.
So that is so interesting. And Julian Swanson had some things going against him in the way that with his incident limit, so we have the 17x for the drive-through and 22 for the disqualification. So Julian Swanson has that working against him where he can't apply too much pressure and risk any more incident points. So it's definitely going to play into his mindset and his racecraft on how he handles the situation. So he was definitely applying that pressure. Oh, and he goes off.
Oh no, Swanson going the wrong way here. He's got to be very close to that incident limit. And now Lima is going to put the pressure on that 51 machine. Lima surely knows Swanson has been racking up some incident points. And here we go. Lima looking to strike against Swanson, the 51 machine, regaining the spot for that 47. And this is going to be a final shootout. Dan McFarland, he's got about 6/10 of a lap left to go here at the ring. And Swanson, again, dipping the wheels off, getting a bit of an off track. That is going to put a fire under Lima here.
Absolutely. This is interesting. I think part of this too at this point in the race is who can keep their brain still focused that intensely to get to that finish line without incident point. It is not easy for 50 minutes. Can any of you out there, the fans, you, me, anyone, focus for 50 minutes to that level? It is not easy at all.
I said, me personally, definitely not here, especially at the track like the ring. If we were going someplace like Daytona, Road Atlanta, I'd be more apt to say I can do, an hour-long stint pretty darn clean. But at a track like this, so incredibly diverse, every corner is different. That is a big ask for any driver to put in a perfect lap over the course of 50 minutes.
Without mistake.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah. And you can really tell that at the higher or any level, higher level, lower level, what is the difference between one driver to another, and that the mentality or the mental strength really is how I should say it. It's such a huge difference between one to the other, and it shows in racing finish and all that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100% it absolutely does. And these guys are able to put on a show each and every week. This is some of the best drivers I've had the privilege of calling on iRacing. These guys always put in work each and every week, be it, as you said, an FIA-approved track or something a little bit different like the Nordschleife. But these guys are able to come out, adapt, and overcome. And we've seen it with some of the guys that aren't having the best of night here, still staying out on track, putting in as many laps as they possibly can. And it's all about seat time. The only way to get faster and more consistent, to put yourself in McFarland's league, is just putting in the reps to make it happen.
Absolutely, and never giving up. Like last week, I saw Michael McLeod in that crash at Watkins Glen, ended up winning the race. Who would have thought?
Yeah, I mean, that's, again, you just have to be there at the end. That circles back to the championship talk we were speaking of. You've got to be there, and it's all about consistency. Just finishing well, finishing often. I've seen, and I haven't called multiple series here at the Porsche Cup yet, but I've seen it with other series on iRacing. It's definitely not always the fastest guy. We've seen guys get cleaned out in races. Sometimes it's their fault, sometimes it's not, but it doesn't matter when it comes down to championship points. You've got to score them to get there at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. So Adam Schmidt's 30 seconds. He has Jeff Seville 4 seconds and losing that gap. So Jeff Seville must be absolutely flying. Jeff Seville, his last lap by 6 minutes 39.
Yeah, and I think Seville knows as well. If he's got anything left in the tank, anything left of the tire wear, now's the time to use it all up. McFarland has about a tenth of a lap left to go here. He's in his own zip code. 35 seconds up over Jeff Seville, 31 over Adam Schmidt in second. Seville's still about 4 seconds back from Schmidt, but it's been kind of an accordion back and forth on which sectors of the track these guys are running their best at.
So let's follow along with Jeff Seville right here, and
oh no! Well, the commentator's curse hits hard.
oh no! Uh-oh, so how is he gonna be able to stay ahead? Looks like
I think he's good for third here, unless he has a penalty.
oh, that would be really painful. So it looks like Dan McFarlane has now officially won this race.
Yeah, McFarland, the first across the line, set the fastest lap of the race last time by, a 6:35.51. Adam Schmidt's going to be the next driver to cross the line. A comfortable 16-second margin up over Jeff Seville. And let's see about Seville. Now, what happens if Seville has a penalty here?
If anyone has a drive-through penalty on the very last lap, they still have to. You're basically done for. You cannot serve a drive-through penalty on the last lap. You're getting a 40-second time penalty to the end of your race. So if Jeff Seville does in fact have a drive-through, and it looks like he does, that's going to effectively put Michael McLeod into the podium position.
My goodness, what a change here. As McLeod gives a little boop. And we give the classic Porsche Cup send-off here for these drivers. And a little bit of celebratory shenanigans.
Absolutely. I mean, if you start at the very back and end up on the podium at the Nurburgring, I think you would too, right?
Yeah, it's a great day for all these drivers that are able to bring it home. So, again, if you're joining us, the unofficial results, and I can't stress that enough. No, it's updated. Dan McFarland.
Nope, these are the official.
Yeah, Dan McFarland in the top spot. Adam Schmidt bringing it home in second. And Michael McLeod will sneak up into third, as it looks like Jeff Seville is going to unfortunately fall back to sixth. So that is going to have big championship implications here.
Wow, that was quite an ending with the drive-through and the pits being such a huge factor. Wow. Blows me away.
Dad Time Racing, what's the final notes of the night with today's race at the Nordschleife?
Final notes is, you know what? What do they call this? The green hell?
Yes.
It absolutely caught a lot of people, just as it always does. That's the final notes that I got. What about you?
I can't beat it. Great racers, great times, and a crazy wild finish there to round out the top three. And always a pleasure calling the action here at the Porsche Cup Challenge. Again, my name has been James East with Team Goon Squad Broadcasting, accompanied by Dad Time Racing. You can find him on Twitch, twitch.tv/DadTimeRacing. On behalf of the Porsche Cup Challenge Series, thank you all so much for tuning in, supporting the show, and we'll see you at the next one. Have a great night, everybody.
See you guys later.